After we had recorded this podcast, news broke of the dramatic intercept of 7 men driving from Melbourne to Sydney. This is the news hit from Australia.
Good evening. We begin with breaking news from Liverpool, where a major police operation is underway. Let's go to Tiffany Genders at the Sydney Police Centre. Tiff, what can you tell us?
Terrifying scenes this afternoon at Liverpool, Georgie. Tactical officers wearing camouflage gear and carrying long-arm firearms have been seen pinning several men to the ground. This is all unfolded on the corner of George and Campbell Streets, right outside the busy Westfield shopping centre. Now, there are at least 5 suspects who have been searched, handcuffed and then lined up against a fence and a wall. It appears their car had been intercepted and rammed to a stop. Beanbag rounds also believed to have been fired through the windscreen. Witnesses on the ground have claimed that the men under arrest were carrying firearms, but that has not been confirmed. We can also see in the vision one man is strapped to a stretcher. He has a bloodied head and bandages covering his face. No official word tonight from police on whether this is linked to the Bondi terror attacks. I'm told this operation has been top secret. But
As you can see in the clip, the men were armed. Their car was rammed by law enforcement in order to force it to stop. And it is believed that they were en route to conduct an operation imminently. Australian authorities are saying nothing more at this time. Now, to our planned podcast. The virulent anti-Semitism that has shaken many in Sydney, Australia, and worldwide is equally, if not more, entrenched, widespread, and frankly, accepted in Canada, and in particular, Toronto. It may be 25 degrees in Sydney and minus 25 in Toronto at this time of year, but I assure you, not even the ice and cold deters the anti-Semites. And even in this post-Bondi era, the momentum of public Jew hatred in Toronto has intensified. I'm Vivian Berkovich, former Canadian ambassador to Israel, and for the next few minutes, bringing you the reality of what Canada and Toronto have become. Like Sydney, anti-Semitic cesspits. Let's do this. Okay, I'm going to just give you a few facts for context. Sydney has a community of about 50,000 Jews. Toronto has more than 200,000. Both cities, as well as Melbourne and Montreal, are home to a very large number of Holocaust survivors proportionally, and their direct descendants. I'm one of those. I lived in Toronto for most of my first 52 years. I visit often and for long periods. At least I did until October 7th and the aftermath, because things have changed dramatically. And the way in which leadership at all levels, federal, provincial, municipal, has emboldened and licensed organized anti-Semitism is heart-stopping. There are many similarities between the two cities, Sydney and Toronto, in terms of Jewish hatred. Let's start on October 7th. In both cities, there were huge, spontaneous celebrations, publicly, where the Free Palestine, Globalize the Intifada, and progressive leftists came together to party, express their boundless joy as the slaughter was ongoing. First, let's focus on Sydney. This video that we're going to show you in a moment was taken of celebrants on October 9th. It shows the joyful crowd clamoring to gas the Jews and more. Have a look.
Flares were thrown, anti-Semitic slurs chanted, and an Israeli flag set on fire during that illegal pro-Palestinian rally last night at the Opera House. Anger is growing about why police allowed the demonstration while warning Sydney's Jewish community to stay home.
They were fired up. frenzied. What was meant to be a peaceful pro-Palestine demonstration, anything but. As an Israeli flag was set alight, flares thrown, and anti-Semitic slurs chanted in front of one of Sydney's most famous landmarks.
The word blocked out in the subtitles is gas. The chant they were yelling outside the Sydney Opera House, gas the Jews. I happened to be in Toronto on October 7th, and for some time following, I was supposed to return to Israel on the 10th after a long holiday in Canada, but I extended my stay. And from the first moments of the attack, everything in Toronto changed for Jews. It was terrifying. Overnight, the city became unrecognizable. But I'd like to focus here on the astonishing parallels to Sydney, now that the world is watching, for a few minutes anyways. From the very beginning, all leadership in Toronto, Ontario, and at the federal level in Canada has demonstrated a consistently and alarmingly cavalier approach to the rabid Jew hatred that has escalated openly. The police in Toronto, the mayor, the premier, and successive prime ministers have chosen to characterize the constant incitement to hate and violence, to hatred and violence, targeting Jews as peaceful protest. And as I have been repeating for more than 2 years now, calling for the annihilation of Israel and the murder of Jews openly is neither peaceful nor is it constitutionally protected speech and conduct, in spite of what political and law enforcement leadership assert. Okay, so fast forward. Take it on faith that over the past 2 years, there have been multiple gun attacks, Molotov cocktail attacks on schools, Jewish schools in Toronto and Montreal, at least weekly protests denouncing Jews and calling for their deaths in Toronto, Jewish kids beaten up in public schools, bullied incessantly. I know from personal involvement that the Toronto District School Board, fourth largest in North America, tends to dismiss such incidents as, well, being complicated, as do the police. The school board is addicted to equivalency and DEI. It takes two to tango, they like to say. There are two sides to the story. Well, sometimes there are not two sides. Sometimes one person is motivated by a pathological ideology that calls for violence, and sometimes, as in Sydney, they act on it. Fact: when a gang of Muslim kids corner a Jewish boy in a public school and tell him to look at the ground because he is in the presence of Muslims, because he is, as a Jew, a lesser being. When they tell that boy that they will do to him what Hamas did to Israelis on October 7th, when they throw rocks at the boy's head, when this conduct is ongoing for an entire school year. There are not two sides to this story. And this is just one story of thousands. And yes, Toronto Police and the Toronto District School Board are both well aware of this case, and I am confident that they are also aware of many others. Our children are getting beaten up in school in Toronto for being Jewish. Enrollment in Toronto Jewish day schools has grown exponentially. Why? Because Jews are terrified. Why? For good reason. Okay, let's go back to Sydney. The Globalize the Intifada crowd wasted no time in, once again, celebrating the carnage. A day or two after the slaughter at Bondi Beach, there was a vigil. Protesters came out, jeering at those who were bereaved. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese expressed his outrage, predictably. They all do. And in the next breath, the Prime Minister decried the access that Australians have to guns and right-wing extremism. Not a word of criticism of Islamists. Not from Prime Minister Albanese. Okay, Toronto, Canada, on the afternoon of the Bondi massacre, Sunday. Hours later, beginning at 1 p.m. in Toronto, as they've done for more than 2 years now, Islamists converge at Bathurst Street and Shepherd Avenue, a major intersection in the north end of the city that is something of a hub for the heavily Jewish population in the area. There's a plaza, there are shops. As always, the police in Toronto do nothing to stop the Islamists. On the contrary, their typical MO is to pal around, joke around with the Free Palestine crowd while yelling at the Jews. Their strategy? Separate the Jews and those who want to kill them. Pretty impressive policing, huh? In fact, I'm pretty sure that the Toronto police have detained more Jews at Bathurst and Shepherd over the last 2 years than they have others. Why? Well, they like to say, it's for your own safety. Now, where have we heard that before? Another favorite line of Toronto police? That simply by being there, we Jews, we provoke violence, we instigate. But they go further, Toronto police. They proactively protect and defend the Islamists and progressives as they stroll on residential streets at Bathurst and Shepherd. And they carry their hateful signs, and they taunt the Jewish residents. And police typically tell the Jewish people, be quiet, let them pass. They tell the Jewish people, clear the sidewalks. They tell the Jewish people, let them pass peacefully. After all, they have rights. They seem to have rights that no one else in Canada enjoys. This that you're about to see is one of many spectacles. Again, took place on Sunday after Bondi in Toronto. This is a video taken by Karim Assad, an outstanding citizen journalist who also happens to be a lawyer in Toronto, and she documents everything that the mainstream media in Canada completely ignores. Here is what took place last Sunday at Bathurst and Shepherd after Bondi. A crowd of Islamists was singing in Arabic. They were blasting their song through speakers in an attempt to drown out a public candle lighting event taking place on the other side of the street. The event, of course, was thinly attended in the wake of Bondi. Yes, Toronto Jews are afraid, and rightly so. I've had the song that was being sung that day translated by Jonathan Halevi, a Toronto resident who is fluent in Arabic and an expert on many aspects of antisemitism and Middle Eastern issues. The full video is about 5 minutes long, but what I'm going to do now is just read for you just a taste, a few lines of the lyrics. Do you threaten us with what we already await, O son of the Jewish mother? By force, we will teach you a lesson. By force, we are going to show you. By force, we will smash your head. And my mother is Palestinian. By force, O son of the Jewish mother. Victory is near. By Allah, it is near. Come to the success. We will teach you a lesson. By force, we're going to show you. By force. Prepare the M16 for me. By Allah, we will make you live in fear. We have begun the liberation of Palestine. That's just a taste. You can see the masked Islamist singing as a police officer chats amiably with another demonstrator nearby. They are literally calling for the mass murder of Jews and annihilation of Israel under the nose of Toronto police. You get the drift. On the same day, as the Islamists marched through the quiet adjacent residential streets, a Toronto police officer rebuked a resident to be nice to the demonstrators. Be nice. As we watched this in horror, one of my daughters, who was raised in Toronto, asked me, "Mommy, if we were still little and still living in Toronto, would you take us to candlelighting?" Not a chance. Not a chance. Why? Am I weak? Afraid? Hell no. Because I understand that these people are serious. They hate us, and they will stop at nothing to realize their fantasy of killing every last Jew. I am paying attention and listening to what they say. What more do we need to see and hear? These are the victims of Bondi Beach. They include a 10-year-old girl, an 87-year-old Holocaust survivor, and each story is impossibly heartbreaking. And then there are the survivors and their families. Among them, a lucky 3-year-old little girl who was separated from her parents, but shielded by a brave stranger, a pregnant woman. There was the hero, Ahmed al-Ahmed, a Muslim immigrant from Syria who happened to be at the beach and, unarmed, tackled one of the shooters from behind and grabbed his gun. Ahmed is a hero, a 43-year-old father of 2. He was wounded badly in the shoulder by the second shooter. Prime Minister Albanese visited Ahmed in the hospital, but he did not visit any of the other victims of the shooting. He did not visit the Jews. We're now going to show you a video. The mother of 10-year-old Matilda Blatvin speaking at the Sydney Vigil on Tuesday. Matilda was murdered at the Hanukkah celebration at Bondi as her 6-year-old sister, Summer, looked on. They were inseparable. Matilda's brother speaks briefly after his mother. This 2-minute clip broke me, and I've seen a lot.
But I can't imagine what the monster was standing on that bridge and seeing little girl running for her father to hide with him, and he just pulled his trigger on her. I don't know. It wasn't just a bullet from a spray. It wasn't an accident. It was a bullet just was fired on her. Sorry if I disturbed someone. I didn't want to do that, but it just stays here, and I can't get it out.
Okay. Hi, I'm Matilda's brother. The one thing that brings me comfort now is that whenever I would ask Matilda if she knew that I loved her, she would immediately say yes. She knew she was loved. She wasn't alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
The picture that we're showing now on the screen show Matilda in her happy final moments at the Hanukkah by the Sea event at Sydney's Bondi Beach. The blurred face is her 6-year-old sister, Summer. Prime Minister Albanese did not attend the funeral of 10-year-old Matilda. That is all that he should be doing this week, attending every single funeral for the Jewish victims. But he won't. Sydney police have been heavily criticized for literally ducking for cover as the shooters went on their rampage, unimpeded, for 10 to 15 minutes. What we don't hear much about? A Jewish couple in their 60s, Sophia and Boris Gurman. They saw the gunmen before they began their murder spree in a parking lot just by the beach, and they struggled to disarm them for several minutes before being shot and killed. Here is a video and coverage of their heroic efforts.
So this couple, identified by local media as Boris and Sophia Gurman, are thought to be the first to try and stop the terrorists as they got out of a car that displayed an Islamic State flag. The footage you're watching now shows a man in a lavender shirt confronting one of the shooters before he was ultimately shot. Later on, there is some imagery of the couple lying next to the vehicle. As Sophie said, it's not the first example of the unbelievable heroism that was shown on the day, but it is expected now to be the first example of that heroism.
Albanese is not talking about their heroism, nor is the world lit up about it. Why? Because they're Jews? And they were murdered. These photographs are of Boris and Sophia Gurman, murdered at ages 69 and 61. I expect that Albanese skipped their funerals as well. Okay, back to Toronto. I leave you with the very moving outrage expressed by Ben Mulroney, a radio host in Toronto, son of former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, and member of a family that has demonstrated exceptional integrity throughout this period. They're not Jewish. They are just fine Canadians who are horrified by what is unfolding in our country. Listen to Ben.
The lighting of the menorah is happening in Jewish communities around the world. It happened on Bondi Beach, as it is happening everywhere where there is a Jewish community. So just because it happened there doesn't mean it cannot happen here. And a Conservative MP, Roman Baber, was at the lighting of the menorah here in Toronto. And let's listen to his description of the event. You would think that this would happen surrounded by peace and joy, not in Toronto.
Right across the street, they're threatening me in real time, but I got news for them. I'm in a great mood because we just lit the menorah collectively and bet you that regardless of whatever it is you do, we're going to light the menorah for another 2,000 years. There you go. Chag Sameach, everybody. Thank you.
You can hear the protests happening across the street. And these aren't protests. These are what are you protesting? This is a religious event. If this were to happen at any other religious event, those people screaming would rightly be called bigots. Bigots. And they would be marginalized, and rightly so. They are bigots. Full stop. And I want to go back to what our mayor said. To the Toronto Jewish community, I know the fear you feel is real. While celebrating your faith, gathered with loved ones, or simply being visible, you deserve to live freely, openly, and safely in our city. Madam Mayor, that is, I don't know if it's deliberately obtuse. I don't know how you square those two things. You have the power to do something about the bigots. You have the power to stop them from entering Jewish communities while all they are trying to do is celebrate their faith. You don't want to do it. And if you don't want to do it, fine. But you don't get to go on social media and deliberately mislead people that you care about them. You don't care about them. You don't. Let's call things what they are. If you want to proudly stand with those bigots who want to scream and hurl epithets at the Jews, you go right ahead. But you don't get to turn around and say, oh, this is such a shame. You have the power to do something and you don't. So stop this. Stop calling something that it's not. You are not an ally of the Jews. You are not an ally of these Torontonians who just want to live in peace. You're not. You're doing nothing to help them. You're only making matters worse. And it is insulting to suggest that you care about them one iota. One iota.
And what Ben says about Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow? Well, it applies to the Chief of Police, Myron Demkew, Ontario Premier Doug Ford, and Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. We will have a longer episode coming out this weekend, focusing further on the Jew-hating hell Toronto has become. It is the second episode in a two-part series that focuses on a violent attack on a group of Jewish students on November 5th in downtown Toronto and the aftermath. And we get into just what Toronto police are doing to manage this ongoing crisis and what they're not doing. Check out our website, stateoftelaviv.com, for more. This is what Toronto has come to. It's insane. The fourth largest Jewish community in the world is in Canada, and they are concentrated, the Jewish Canadians, in the Toronto area. Jews are fair game everywhere. This is Mark Carney's Canada. This is a national security crisis, not an issue to be managed by municipal cops anymore. Do not look away. Thanks for being here. State of Tel Aviv is an independent publication. We need and deeply appreciate your financial support. If you find our work meaningful, please take out a paid subscription today. Just go to our website, stateoftelaviv.com, hit subscribe, and you'll be prompted from there. Or go to Buy Me a Coffee. You'll see the logo on the screen now. Whatever you can offer is deeply appreciated. More coming soon, but until then, again, thanks for being here. Stay safe. We love hearing from you, so please comment on our website, stateoftelaviv.com, or send us a note to Vivian@stateoftelaviv.com. On behalf of the State of Tel Aviv core team, Jan Zabo, our creative, graphic, visual, and marketing man, Amir White, producer and editor extraordinaire, sound guy who is also impressively patient with me and my boomer tech deficiencies, and our social media manager who pitches in on everything, Maya Naftalin. Thanks to the team. Thanks to you for being here. Until next time.